how you got involved. I'd like to welcome everybody to Let's Talk Racing. We've got myself, Roger Brehm, Scott Allen, and Brian Morehouse in the house. Did y'all have a good race weekend?
Yeah, everything was good. I enjoyed it. I didn't have to go down to Charlotte, so that was good. Got to actually go on a vacation. So, but I did take in and watch the All-Star race, and it really looked good. So it was really exciting. What, 4 segments, and then the main. So you had first was Kyle Busch. The next 2 was Casey Kane, and then the 4th one was that Harvick?
I don't know if he won the 4th one. I mean, he was the one to beat there at the end.
Yeah,
and then the last segment.
And then McMurray. Man, that was
he took off at the end there. I didn't get to watch it because I was running over Langley doing the Wing Champs, but so I was trying to pay attention on my phone what was going on.
But yeah, it was interesting. McMurray, from what I was seeing, was really doing good. I mean, that team
good for him because they haven't really done really well this year, you know. So I thought it was good to see him. And Jimmy's is a nice guy.
But he really is. You got to think now. That team, well, let's just say
it was kind of dismantled a little bit.
McMurray's won Charlotte. He's won the Daytona.
Race.
He's won Indy, and now he's won the All-Star race.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a major accomplishment right there. So yeah, I mean, he's done really good.
Year before last, I mean, he won a lot of the big races that year when he won Daytona, or it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I was glad for him because I know there's kind of been a lot of questions on what's going to happen to him.
You got so many people coming up. You know, Kyle Larson's in that organization.
But they got somebody else that's coming up. I can't say his last name.
The number 31 in
Nationwide.
Roger. Dylan.
Kozlowski?
Yeah, the one he came from K&N. But I thought they had someone else in that organization too. So you got a lot of young talent coming up.
Yeah, he's doing quite well, and it's his contract's up this year or next year?
I believe it's up this year.
I think so. So there's been a lot of questions. So it was good to see him win a race.
Right.
And maybe he'll hang around.
Oh yeah. Around. Well, I mean, he's a young guy. Still got many years ahead of him. He's only in his 30s, so that's still young. I mean, not as young as some of them now, coming in at 18, 19. When I was 18, 19 years old, it was just nice to get out of a go-kart. Now these kids have already been through Legends, Bandoleros, Legends, late model, and are usually getting in a K&N car. You know?
Yeah, well, you figure back in the day, kind of when we were growing up, I mean, the average age probably of a Cup driver was probably late 30s, maybe early 40s.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were rookies, you know.
Well, you take Dick Trickle. I think he won the Rookie of the Year. He was in his
50s, I think.
Was it 50s?
I think so. It was something like that. He was
up there.
Yeah.
That was another good driver that really.
I seen a picture of him in the Kyle Petty thing.
Kyle Petty right along.
Dude, he still looks like the same as he did 30 years ago.
Ages well.
Man, he ain't aged at all. I don't know how old he is, but man, I hope I make it.
That's someone I haven't seen around the racetrack, a whole lot. So evidently he must have, enjoyed his time and then, got away from it. Because you usually see, I still see, I haven't seen him the last year or so, but Junior Johnson, his son was racing there for a little while in the late models, so you'd see him out at Caraway Speedway. And he looked just like any normal guy walking around. Somebody asked me, they were like, do you know who that is? I'm like, I don't know who the guy is. And they're like, it's Junior Johnson. Yeah. I was like, wow, okay.
It's funny, and he's still a pretty nice guy too. I seen him in Charlotte last year at the 600, and it was so funny because nobody bothered him. They didn't even know who he was.
Exactly.
And he come walking by us, and we just said, "How you doing, Junior?" Yeah. So I can't believe there ain't nobody around. He said, "That's a good thing." He just leave me below. But he's kind of been helping out Hendricks guys, or I don't know what I don't know exactly what he's doing. We're just trying to get him to think outside the box because he was pretty good at that.
Well, he was very good at it. If you had a chance to read one of Darrell Waltrip's books and him talking about when his time with Junior, it was amazing. And some of the stuff they were coming up, they didn't come out with it, but it sure did make you sit there and read and say, I wonder what they're talking about.
I love hearing those stories of how those guys bent the rules to fit. You know, that's just so cool to me, the engineering side of it.
Oh yeah.
Or just the thought and how you figure those things out. I just love that stuff.
But you know, nowadays, I mean, they're all trying to think outside the box, but NASCAR's only letting you think, but so much, you know. So and that's good because that tightens the competition.
It does. It does.
But we got a lot of big news today in Kentucky. Brian Vickers was doing a tire test. He ended up hitting the wall. He's okay. Everything was okay. He just took a hard hit.
I think he said he thought something broke in the right front or a tire went down, so something along those lines.
Okay.
Which seems to be a trend. Somebody
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, they pulled another car out, so he jumped in that car and went on. So he's good. We got some information that the number 88. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to be a little bit different this week. They're going to be running a Superman scheme on that car. So I happened to see it on the computer today, and it really looked good.
Yeah.
So looking forward to seeing that out there for the Charlotte 600. We've got the Charlotte 600 coming up this weekend, longest race of the season.
It is a long race.
That's going to be very interesting. A lot of good competition out there. 45 cars are listed on the entry list, so that's going to be good. We were reading today that Twisted Tea will be on the number 9 of Marcus Ambrose. And another one that we heard about, picked up a new sponsor, was beef jerky on the number 36 of Reed Sorensen.
Yeah, I think it's 36, yeah.
So that will be interesting. It looks like Kurt Busch made it down there for the All-Star race. Raced the All-Star race, jumped back, went back to Indy, did some, practice and qualifying and everything else. He did a record car this week, but he's okay, back at it, and it's going to be really interesting to see him race and then have to get back to the 600. That is going to be a long day.
It is going to be a long day, but you know, he has done, I mean, for me personally, I think he's done better than what I would have thought he would have done out there. Jumping into a car that he's really not that familiar with. But didn't he do a test last year?
I had thought that he had. Was it last year or the beginning of this year?
I think last year.
Okay.
If I'm not, I don't know, but I know he did a test with him. I think just to see if he could do it or not. Or
I really thought you'd see Tony Stewart in one before you would have seen Kurt Busch.
Yeah.
If I was a betting man, but
I think Tony's kind of lost his passion for that side of it. I don't think he's
lost that passion for the little dirt cars.
No, but I think
he's trying to get back to be.
Well, you know, Tony's about as good a shape as you and I am, so maybe he can't. You don't know if because he had talked about that too.
For a while.
Well, when Kurt said he was going to do it, he said he had talked about when he done it when he about fell out of the car at the end of the race. It's like he was good, and then once it was over, it just
took it out of him.
Yeah, I mean, he like about fell out of the car and had to get somebody to come over and assist him for a little while.
But it sounds like Kurt's got all the support he needs. You know, I heard about the talk between him and Tony tweeting and everything else. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a long day for him. It's going to be interesting, and I'm really glad to see Kurt Busch back. I mean, he's doing great at Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, he is, and he does seem like a different person.
Very
I think he is. I think a lot of it's got to do with his girlfriend he's got. I know his ex there. I know some people that are friends with her, and from my understanding, they were just kind of like oil and water.
Really?
That was.
But that, you know, once you get, sometimes people don't realize your personal life, you know, gets affected.
Oh,
Maybe,
yeah.
you know, he's got everything together, and man, he's got his head into racing. And I tell you what, he's one of the guys that I noticed when you put a uniform on him, he's serious.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it.
You see him out or something, you know, he's one of those happy-go-lucky guys, but then you put a uniform on him, it's all about business. It's the same way with his brother. Mm-hmm. You know, you put a uniform on him, he's all serious. So,
yeah. I like seeing how much he enjoys the boys. I can't think of the kid's name now.
Yeah,
he always gets him a suit, and he's always at the track. And then when he did win Martinsville there, it was funny how he to be emotional and talking about taking him to Victory Lane where he wanted to take him so long. So it was cool. But I'm glad to see he's doing well. I did hear on Sirius on the way over here that Kurt is the first champion that has won over to Indy.
Indy, okay.
And hopefully he does well. There's some people that went over there after or before they ever made it over in the NASCAR side, but
so he's the first one that was a champion within NASCAR,
and then
now he's jumped over to Indy to race. Okay. Well, I tell you what, that's going to be real interesting to see him Sunday. A lot of racing. Going to be many laps for him, and we wish him the best. And let's see, we had Iowa Sunday. Sam Hornish won in the '54 Monster Energy drink car, which is usually driven by Kyle Busch. So that was really interesting. Glad to see that for Sam. It seems like the last couple of years, I mean, he's been right there knocking on the door, and you know,
he just can't seem to find something solid,
stable.
or you know, for a long term. I kind of figured he'd be back in the Cup car by now, but it's tough.
Oh, and you know, it's like we talked the other day. I mean, so many drivers. I talked to one driver not too long ago, and he said it was the first time in his career, and he's been around for 20 years, he said that now the driver has got to come in and say, okay, this is what I've got. I've got a sponsorship package. You know, it's not the days of Richard Petty and them. You knew you had STP on the car, and you ran STP all year. Yeah. Well, now it's not like that, because if you look, you've got different sponsors every week. You know, look, I mean, even the big guys like Matt Kenseth and guys like that, I mean, switching out
there's
between
only, what, one, or is there two that are actually full-time, which I think FedEx is
with
one.
Denny Hamlin.
What's the, well, Lowe's.
Well, Lowe's with Jimmy Johnson.
So there's not too many people that can really afford it, honestly.
Right. And, you know, I mean, they do change the colors out of the cars, you know, white to blue for Jimmy Johnson. But you're right, Lowe's is always on that car, and FedEx with the number 11 of Denny Hamlin. But, yeah, so that's pretty much what we had this week. How did things go out at Langley? Did you race?
Yeah, yeah, my teammate.
Everything was good, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't go backwards on the strap.
I want to make sure. So, didn't read anything.
No, we ended up okay. We qualified 13th, and my teammate, well, my clutch wasn't pulling on the start, so, you know, drafting is so big on those things. So I kind of lost a little bit in the start. My teammate dumped me, and I went to the back, and then got hooked up with a couple people, and we managed to get back up to 18th. But, you know, you're talking a 30-cart field or so, so I mean, it's a ton of fun. I love it. It's a great fun. The late model race, man.
Was it interesting?
Dude, you know, they had twin 75s. The first one, Nick... Matt was leading for a while, and then Nick passed him, and then Matt called him, and it was all over him for the last 20 laps.
Really?
The last corner, he knocked him up the racetrack, got sideways like this, and I thought Matt won. We were standing over there on the other side of the fence because we were putting our stuff away, and you look at the start-finish line, and Nick, I don't know where Matt went, but here comes Nick, like sideways, just like all the way down the stretch. Yeah, still wins the race. Matt still finished second.
Wow.
Well, apparently when he got into him and spun him, he spun on pit road and then come back out on pit road. But
yeah.
it was funny because they asked Nick, and they said, Nick, how did you hang on? He says, I don't know, Jesus was driving.
I can see Nick saying
that. So the race was great. The second race, Matt just ran off with it. I was kind of surprised because, you know, they got to run the same tires, so I figured a lot of those guys that ran third, fourth, fifth were just saving their stuff for the second race instead of trying to abuse the tires in the first race. But I don't know what Matt did, but that spin, I figured they'd hurt the tire, not unless they let him put tires on, but I think they're supposed to run the same set.
Same set for the second.
Unless you got a flat.
Well, you know, talking about those champ carts, I know I've probably said this before, I don't know if I remember saying it here on the radio show, TV show, but you know, it's really weird when NASCAR brings an event in like the modifieds or the K&N. It's really funny. Everybody's always saying, can we have extra time to work on our car? And, you know, they're going to the tech director and everything else. But when them champ carts get out there, nobody's working on their car anymore. They're all walking to the back. They want to see what's going on. They love that drafting. And they're like, we don't ever get to see anything like this. And I'm like, well, man, they race these every other week out here because that's something Bill Mullis really loves.
He loves
that. Is where his heart is at.
I'm not going because I'll be at the Strawberry Festival, but the Miles will see us go in the arena car. But the champ carts are going to South Boston this weekend. And Bill doesn't stay at Langley. He actually comes with the carts and goes to South Boston. Wherever the champ carts go, that's where Bill goes. But and he does, like you said, he loves those champ carts.
Well, you know, a lot of people didn't realize this. When I first met Bill, he was racing in the U-Car division. And his heart and soul was into the kart club, Hampton Roads Kart Club, and he really got a lot of experience within the kart club, and you know, dealing with everybody, getting to know people before he ended up taking on the role you know, as the owner of Lano Speedway. But you're right, that's where his heart and soul's at, man. He loves it. And I did hear that they were going to Sobo. I would love to go down there and see it. I think, you know, with that banking and everything else, that would be an awesome race.
You don't have to worry about people ducking under the line at Sobo because there's just a wall. Because actually Bill got on us before the race. He's like, I don't know who was here last week, but y'all drove like crap.
Really?
Yeah, he gave us all a hard time because we had a bunch of cautions that first race, and you know, I think we ran 30 laps, 15 laps under caution, and ended up running a 15 lap feature. But yeah, he's like, y'all do great at Sobo. I guess it's because they got that big wall on the inside and you're scared of hitting it, you know.
Well, it's really weird because people don't understand how dangerous these things can be. I've seen some bad incidents with, you know, flips and everything else.
Yeah.
So, you know, the drafting, y'all got to be very, very careful with that.
You do. And we run these things so loose to get them to be free,
right,
to roll free through the corner, that you're... Yeah,
who we got on the line?
Patrick Staropoli.
All right, we'll go ahead.
Get the monkey over there going.
Patrick, how you doing, man?
Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
Good, man. You got Scott Allen here,
And Brian Morehouse,
and Roger Brehm here. So, man, you are you trying to work yourself into a full-time ride or something?
Oh yeah, man. That's what I'm pursuing 24/7 right now.
So how is it going? So this was your last race with the 99 car, with that 5-race deal?
Yeah. Yeah, Pete gave us a 5-race schedule this year, and that just included this past Saturday we were in Iowa. So I'm kind of a free agent of sorts right now, and I'm looking and pursuing every possible option that I can to keep myself in the seat this year and keep moving up the ranks.
Was there anything that you can let us in on? I mean, you got anything in the works and looking forward to anything, you know, here within the next couple of weeks? Are you going to be doing any more with K&N, the East or the West, or, you know, maybe even trying to put
he's leading the points.
Oh, well,
he's got a big lead.
Oh, well, so I thought they just gave him a 5-race deal.
Well, they did, but he's still leading the points.
Okay, okay. So
right?
Are you going to be back?
Right?
Are you going to be back in the car?
You know, I really hope we're going to be back in the car. I got, you know, it's really great, the whole group that's been supporting me this entire time, whether it's been, you know, MWR or McAnally, and then, you know, even with Peak, everyone wants to see me continue and move up the ladder and succeed. So I've been leaning on them for a lot of advice. I don't know where we're going to end up. I know Bill's been working on a lot of stuff for the West Series to keep me in that car, and I'm in Charlotte right now, and I got, you know, a ton of meetings lined up this week. I'm doing everything I can to keep my name out there and stay in front of these guys, put together a ton of marketing materials. So anybody that's out there listening that's looking for a driver who can get it done in a very short amount of time with big expectations, you know, I'm your guy. So
I hear you. Well, we definitely, the other night we went out to eat and we started talking about a little bit about your education and everything else. Would you give us a little bit of insight about, you know, the schooling you've had? I was really impressed with one of the schools they told me, and a little bit about your background getting started in racing.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I've had quite a bit of a different journey getting to this point in my racing career than I think a lot of other racers had. When I first started in karts when I was about 13 years old, I made a deal with my parents that I had to get straight A's in school and they would keep a race car ready for me. So, I mean, I took that deal to heart, and then went all through school with great grades, and ended up going to Harvard for college, and I graduated there in 2012, summa cum laude with a degree in neurobiology. So I don't think there's too many other race car drivers walking around with that. And, you know, I'm a year and a half into medical school now, and I've always been very, you know, realistic when it came to my racing career and the goals that I had for it. And so I've taken school very seriously so that I have something very solid to fall back on. And you know, I'm just lucky I'm at the point where I am right now. I've been able to live my dream this year, get a NASCAR win, and still have all the school stuff behind me. And I think a lot of the skills that I've learned there I'm using right now, whether it's, you know, meeting with different people, pitching sponsors, putting marketing materials together, kind of everything I've learned in my life is helping me right now in racing.
Well, how'd you enjoy Iowa? Iowa's a very interesting track, isn't it?
Iowa's an awesome track, man. I wish we had the finishing result to go along with how awesome the track is, but you know, we had a very up and down night. We qualified on the pole for the West cars, and right when I crossed the finish line on my qualifying lap, the ignition box caught on fire. So we had to change that out and start all the way in the rear. And of course, Iowa is a big race, East and West, so there was I think 36 to 38 cars that started, and we drove all the way up to 11th, and then right after halfway, some of the guys in front of us decided to get kind of rowdy, and there was a big wreck, and we got turned around in it. So went all the way to the rear again, drove all the way back up to 10th place, and then we got a flat right front tire. So by the time it was all said and done, we ended up in 15th, but I think we passed, 40-something cars in a 150-lap race. So that alone right there, I'm really proud of. I worked great together with the same crew all 5 races this year. Definitely wouldn't have minded going out with a win like we had at Irwindale, but it was still a strong night and a really cool racetrack.
Yeah, definitely. Now who's crew chiefing for you and who's spotting for you in 2014?
Dwayne Norr's been my crew chief for all the races I've run with McAnally, and we normally have Chris Bonas spotting for us, but my buddy Rich from Roush Racing actually spotted for me this past weekend, so it was kind of different getting used to a new spotter at a big track like Iowa. That was the biggest track I've ever run outside of Lakeland, Florida. It's a 3/4 mile down there, but Iowa's 7/8, and just kind of getting used to the cars at that track and how fast people are moving around you, and the air really started coming into play more than most other short tracks I've run in the past. So we had Rich on board. He kind of got me through all the wrecks, and we ended up having a pretty decent night.
Now, are you coming out to Langley Speedway for the K&N race there?
If I find a ride, I'll be there. I don't know if we're going to make it out there to hang out. I'll be up in Charlotte for a couple weeks. They're having the Peak Stock Cartoon Challenge again, so I'm here at least through that contest to help them out with that, and we'll see what kind of races I can make through the rest of the year.
It'd be really interesting if we could get you down here, and somebody give you a ride. It's a real interesting track. Of course, we're only about, 6-7 miles from there, from our studio. Right. So, we'd love to be able to get you down here, man, and I know you'd love to be able to jump in a car and be able to compete with the East guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I've known about Langley for a long time. I watched a lot of Pro Cup races on TV when I was a kid, so it'd be awesome to get the opportunity to run at that track.
So So is Michael Walker, have those guys signed you yet as like a development driver or anything?
Yeah, the kind of relationship we have right now is basically development drivers. Not necessarily been a contract involved yet, but I'm kind of under the wing of those guys, and their biggest focus right now is winning a Sprint Cup championship, and so they don't really have plans to make a K&N team or a truck team. But I'm really close with their organization. I'm working with their marketing people. They've been helping me out a lot, so that's kind of the extent of our relationship right now.
Hey Patrick, another quick question here. Last time you were here, somebody asked it too late, and they were wanting to know, are you going to be a doctor or are you going to be a race car driver? And also actually got another question on the line too, once you answer that one.
Yeah, well, I think that all depends on kind of how these next few months play out. I went all in this year when I got the time off from school to pursue these races, and I think having 24/7 to eat, sleep, live, and breathe racing has really given us success on the racetrack and off of it this year. So, I have basically the rest of this year before I have to decide on school, and obviously I'm doing everything I can to make it happen on the racing side, and that's my main priority right now. So. I finally got the opportunity to chase my dream, and I'm in the middle of doing that, so hopefully I can make it happen.
All right, I've got a caller on the other line that's got a question for you. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name's Jimbo Chadwick.
Repeat that?
My name's Jimbo Chadwick. I'm from New Smyrna Beach, Florida.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, Patrick, I see you've got 5 races to run this year, and you've already won a race. And you won a pole, which is outstanding to do that early, but you've only got 5 races, and I see you've already run it. Is there anything in the future, after having so much success, are people calling you, and what are your plans as far as hopefully getting something going for yourself?
Could you hear them, Patrick?
Yeah, could you repeat the end of the question? It was cutting in and out.
Yeah, what their question was sort of similar to what we had asked a little earlier. What's your plans for the rest of the season? You started off so good with 5 races, 1 win, 1 pole, and been to some major tracks, and they basically just want to know what the rest of the season
what your plans are so far. Do you think you've done pretty well with the opportunities you've been given, and just kind of want to know what your plans are at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think we've maximized the on-track potential that we had this year, and basically up until this point in the season, I've been racing for wins on the track, and now I guess from here on out we're kind of racing for sponsors, for a win in the sponsor department the rest of the year. So that's kind of my main priority right now, to get back in the seat, and I still have my super late model down in Florida, so whenever I kind of make it home from this grand journey I'm on, I got to get that thing back together and hopefully run some more races. I know, we got the Governor's Cup coming up in November at New Smyrna, and that's always one I have marked on my calendar. So hopefully we'll get a couple more of the short track races going on and get something put together on the NASCAR side.
It's awesome. Well, I tell you what, you really got something great to fall back on, and it's good that everybody's always, seeing people come up through the ranks, whether it's K&N or, trucks, but always nice to have something to be able to fall back on, and you to be able to fall back on the degree and the hard work that you put in. Man, you've really.
Well, I think it kind of shows how dedicated he is.
Exactly.
And that's pretty impressive.
Very.
Yeah, I tell you have to be. Anyway, the reason I was asking earlier if you were going to make it to Langley, if you needed help with a spotter, I would give you a hand on that, by the way.
Okay, cool. Well, if we find me a ride for Langley, then you are my #1 appointed spotter right now.
I used to run late model out there for a few years, so I've been around the track a few laps.
Yeah, okay, awesome, man, cool.
So how are the talks going? I mean, is it looking promising that you're going to be able to put something together?
There's some promising parts of the conversations, and there's some that kind of discourage you. And I mean, it's kind of what I expected going into this whole deal, because I knew, for the past several months that it would get to this point. So
yeah, it kind of sucks coming to this point, but I mean, it's like you're living this high, like you hit the lottery and you're running out of money, literally.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So, it's no secret that the sport's very sponsorship driven, and everyone who's in this game right now and who's succeeding at it, recognizes that, and they're doing very well on the sponsorship side, and so it's part of it. If you want to keep moving up the ladder, you got to be good at both aspects, behind the wheel and behind the camera, and it makes it more challenging than definitely just going out there and racing, but everyone's got the same cards to play, so hopefully we figure out how to play them too.
Now, you call Florida home, I imagine. Is that where you grew up? Because you had said something about that's where your super late model is at.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Cool.
Now, do you sit in on trying to find sponsors, or is that something that NWR is trying to do, or do you have somebody that works for you yourself that's trying to put some stuff together?
No, I'm kind of leading the charge in that department. I mean, I've been putting together
good for you
kinds of presentations and things like that, because definitely once you start getting into having people do things for you, of course, you got to pay for it, and not quite something that's in my budget.
So you're thrifty also, right?
he took some accounting classes too. That's great.
No, I think it's great because today, as we were talking to David Starr last week, that today it just seems like before, years ago, sponsorship wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
You could get as many sponsors as you wanted. They were calling you, trying to get on your car, and today, all the car owners are looking for a driver that has a sponsor.
Yeah, coming with a sponsor, and I mean that's exactly what it seems like you're going through now. Bringing your own money to the table. So the sport has changed so much, even in the last 10 years. But if we look back over the last 20, it's dramatically changed.
Yeah.
So I mean, it sounds like you've really got everything lined up, and it sounds like you've been busy in Charlotte this week with meetings and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely got everything rolling and I'm doing everything I can. And you're right, I mean, the landscape's changed so much in the last 10 years for how you go out and succeed in this sport. And, it's difficult, but we're all working on it and hopefully get something together.
Now, are you just cold calling? Or do you have, like, some connections that you're pursuing?
A mixture of cold calls and really just, relationships that I've been developing for a while. And, a lot of these guys, you either come in with a sponsor because it's a close personal tie, or you kind of just work through networking. And I think it's so important for young drivers nowadays who don't have, a major sponsor backing them all the time to really just make as many connections as you possibly can and keep developing those. And it comes down to not only who you know, but when you know them. And the timing of certain things works out. And that's something I'm definitely paying a lot of attention to right now. So, they say it's really hard to break into the sport, and definitely it was. I mean, I never would have been in this position to begin with if it wasn't for the challenge last year. But, once you get here, finding a way to stay here is also equally difficult. So it keeps things interesting, man. And, once I get back in the wheel, I'll be more hungry than ever to go out there and win. So I think that'll pay to our advantage in the future.
Now, did you have any marketing background of any sort? Because, cold calling, it takes a special person to
Yeah, I don't know if I could do cold call.
You know, call
I don't
somebody.
take reject real good.
Just,
you know?
yeah.
So it's awesome that you're able to do that. But I mean, did you have any type of marketing experience before you started getting into this this year?
No, I had zero background in it at all, period. So I'm kind of learning everything on the fly right now.
It's awesome.
It's funny, if you asked any race car driver 10 years ago what they were majoring in college, you'd get it like a mechanical engineer.
Right,
yeah.
Wanted to learn how to work on their stuff. And now, every race car driver you talk to is going to school for marketing. So it's kind of funny how all that changed, but you know, I'm learning a lot in a hurry, and it's definitely a skill that I didn't think I would have to learn in my life as a race car driver, but, you know, it's interesting in its own way.
Well, Patrick, I think you should, you know, be proud of yourself, because I think you've done a great job. Aside from your education, you've done a great job, you know, with the car.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing the interviews, you're putting your name out there, you're doing all the right things, and I really hope you do make it, because I think you'd be a great asset in the sport.
And you know, I tell you, you mentioned something that was so you're right on the networking. It's you never know who you may end up being in front of 2 weeks down the road. Yeah. And you know, one supervisor I had years ago told me, "Don't never burn no bridges." So you never know, that guy may be working for another company, and you may need that support. So I tell you what, Patrick, sounds like you've really got things going, got something to fall back on, and man, I hope to see you catch this dream, see you at the track every weekend.
Really?
Yeah, thanks guys, that means a lot.
Well, man, we appreciate you calling in. We look forward to seeing you. If you can get down here to Hampton, Virginia, where Langley Speedway's at, we'd love to see you and entertain you, and hopefully see you on the track.
Yep, sounds good, man. I'll let you guys know if I'm making down there. Thank you very much for having me on the show, and hopefully I'll be back on soon with some really good new stuff.
Yeah, we'd love to hear if you get some.
Go ahead and give a shout out to your sponsors, and also check.
You got no more sponsors.
Well, I mean, hey, he's got some people who are hanging with him. And check your text. I sent you a text too about something too when you get done.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it. I'm on my phone right now. But yeah, I mean, you know, just overall though, still a thank you to Peak Motor Oil for putting me in the position to be able to run these races this year, and being more MWR, my parents and family. I mean, it's been such a crazy journey from where I was a year ago to where I am now, and you know, I couldn't have done it without all those people helping me out and pushing me and promoting me. So thank you guys very much.
Hey, we appreciate having you on. We look forward to speaking to you again here in the near future.
All right, sounds good. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Well, I mean, dude, he is such a great kid.
I mean well-spoken, everything else. I mean,
was he the one that Al said he had said a word that I didn't know what it was? And I was like, he's the only one I know that said it right.
Yep.
And then I think that's how we got on the Harvard thing. I was like, you are the only one I know of that's, I don't even remember what it could have been, like or something. I don't know. But it was like used it, you know, the way it correctly.
It was like being effective and effective.
Something like that.
Something like that.
I mean, I would have never caught it, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I run in that all the time when Terry sends me paperwork to look over for the racing stuff and everything, and I'll send her back all this stuff, said, you know, all these typos, you need to reword this, reword that, and
I tell you, I went out with a girl one time. She used all these big words. I didn't know what she was saying. You know, you're just
doing the whole
His date was anticlimactic.
But the show's going pretty good. But it must be because we don't have somebody here tonight.
Well, I'm in the middle. You know, that was supposed to be my chair, and the big guy was supposed to be on the end. But no, Jack isn't here this weekend. Jack had
some guests that came in from out of town. Al's down at Charlotte at the Hall of Fame. He's going to be calling in about 8:15. Go over the things that happened down there today.
Yeah,
last year he told us who had voted for and who some of the other people had voted for, and so but this year they got it out pretty quick. So
yeah, it really came out early. I guess we'll just hold off and talk about that when he calls in. Some big names, of course, going into NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
but
I guess we can. Are we going to be able to talk about his charity route or?
Well, I reckon we'll fit that all in.
That'd be really interesting because a lot of people don't know Al Pearce, who's been a sports writer here in the Hampton Roads area for 30+ years before retiring, and now writes for Autoweek. Man, he participates every year from the coast to coast ride for the Victory Junction with Kyle Petty, and he was with us last week, and we ran out of time, but hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit with the Hall of Fame, definitely, and then of course hear a little bit about that ride, because he had a lot of interesting things that he said before the show started that I know everybody'd like to hear about. And it's a great cause. If anybody ever gets a chance to go down to Victory Junction down in North Carolina, definitely get a chance to go.
Yeah, I've actually had 2 customers that they their kids have it's an intestinal disease, and they were invited to come down there, and it's a vacation for the kids and it's a vacation for the parents. And she had nothing but great things to talk about. I mean, they had everything planned out for them, and they got somebody to help you from
A to Z.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like being in a 5-star, resort, and they're just waiting on you hand and foot.
Well, I mean, this was a dream of Adam Petty's, and I'm glad to see that Kyle, Richard, and the whole Petty family, let's just say, and friends, went ahead and kept this dream alive. So
that's
really
like the whole
awesome.
NASCAR community has gotten behind it, honestly.
Yeah, I think Tony Stewart, some big names have done a lot of things.
Paul Newman has done stuff with it.
Well, Paul's got a couple big charities that does similar stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was lucky enough to be at the official opening. They had
official.
It was the week before the official open. They had 2,500 people, and it was media people who were down there. Al was down there. I was down there. Met a lot of people down there. It was great, and just had a blast.
It does seem a little bit like it has died off a little bit. You don't hear as much about it.
I think it's really grown big.
Well, I think because
NASCAR
so much of their foundation, they push that more with the NASCAR racing than they do with the Victory Junction gang. Because back then, they only had a few foundations doing stuff, and you don't even hear that much about the Kyle Petty ride now on TV. They used to at least do some excerpts and.
Well, I think it's because he's not as involved in the sport as he used to be.
Well, I mean, he still commentates on the.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that he's not driving. He's doing 6 races a year, and he was absent there for a few years.
Yeah, well, you've got to think there's so many. Of course, you got the NASCAR Foundation, which is just awesome. They do so much, and you got Victory Junction, and then a lot of the drivers got their own foundations. I mean, the Jimmy Johnson Foundation, and they're doing runs and drawing money or raising money. So I guess there's just so much more out there than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to send out a big thing about Victory Junction. Really a great organization, and of course anything with the Petty family is just awesome.
Yeah.
So really great.
And it takes a lot, because I mean, doctors dedicate their time to go there, and they still have a staff. I mean, I forget what Kyle said one time. I think it's still $1.5 million. I think to keep it going every year. I think at least probably.
Yeah,
I think that was several years ago. So it is a whole great deal. And did they ever do a second location? I think there was talk about it. I don't know if they ever did.
I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Roger? I just remember I thought they were adding on. I know that they did, some upgrades and stuff like that, but I didn't know if they were going to do you know what? It was out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I read about that, but I haven't read anything.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever happened or they were just talking about it or something.
So, but I remember them going out there, and that was basically when Kyle was coming out of racing. And he had a little bit more time. They were
talking about the second victory?
Yeah.
From what I understand, they supposedly had started breaking the ground.
I think it was a different name or something, or they called it something else.
Well, now we're working with Newman, Paul Newman with that too.
Okay.
So I don't know if it did a name change thing or what have you.
Yeah. But it certainly is. And like I said, the people that I knew went down there just was all about their experience
good things
there.
To talk about. Yeah.
It was like a long weekend thing, because there's only like certain things they can eat. I can't think of the disease. It's pretty crazy. And her son is kind of funny, because her son that has it, he's like a Doogie Howser.
Really?
Yeah, he's like he was in ODU at 15 and going through this thing in the hospital all the time. And it was kind of funny because he has a real dry sense of humor, and he's like 6'5" or something.
Wow.
He's a real tall guy, skinny. And when the
unless you want to call back at 8 o'clock.
people are residents are coming into the hospital, he would throw these other things out that there weren't anything. Like they have all these little short words or
that's fine with me. We have
MPV. They're supposed to be pulling this in. Like, let me check on that. And he's just screwing them the whole time. While he's in the hospital, like you probably shouldn't screw with the people that are working on you.
Right.
But it was pretty funny.
Well, I tell you what, it is good organizations out there. I mean, and the NASCAR community does a lot, even at the short tracks. You look at Langley, you look at South Boston and stuff like that. They do a lot for the community. I know when we were down here with the modifieds a couple of weeks ago, I think the apprentice school was out there at Langley, raising money for our organization, which is the Newport News Apprentice School here in the Virginia area. So. Glad to see, NASCAR community really comes together with things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the money goes to something. It's not like some foundations that if you look at them and like 50% of the money really goes towards the cause that you're, and it makes you feel like you really don't want to give them any money.
Well, talking about that, I've dealt a lot with Jim Hicks, who's down at Langley Speedway, and he's over the fan club. And I know those guys, those three guys, and I think that's his wife that works with him in there. They give all their time. I mean, it's not where they're out there to make anything, and they're all about, I'll get a call from them every once in a while, trying to raise money for something, and they put their heart and soul into it. And like I said, I mean, that's what's so great about the NASCAR community, trying to raise money, because you are right. I mean, there was organizations years ago that, people used to give to, and only a certain percentage went to somewhere. So
and you didn't know exactly where the money was going, and you can be sure that all the money within the NASCAR is going to something.
Right.
I know we get involved with the Zims Foundation, and we put them on our race car for MS, and Ryan Zimmerman is the guy. He's the third baseman for the Nationals, and I think like 98% of the money that you donate goes towards the cause, or goes to
research
at the University of Virginia. Because everybody that works for the foundation is all volunteers. I think that there's only one person they pay, and that's somebody to take care of the website, because none of them know how to do it.
Yeah, that's the reason we got Roger.
Right.
Got a computer problem? Call Roger.
Right.
So we're supposed to be having Al Pearce call in.
Yeah, Al's going to call in, and when we're done talking with him, I just talked with Ross, and we're going to call him back afterwards. That way he gets a good fair amount of time.
Okay. Think about other things that we're going to be talking about. Of course, we could sit here and talk about Charlotte all night. I mean, 600, longest race of the year, and most challenging, demanding, and hard on you. It's the only race I know that by working it, it's not a halftime, but people bring you food.
It is a long race.
They know you're pretty lonely sitting there on pit road.
Yeah, it's a pretty long race. Man, my first 600 was last year. The first time I got to go to the 600, and I just looked up a friend of mine actually sold Rick Hendrick's car, so we actually ended up sitting in Rick's suite watching the race. And for a long race, and that's when the cable broke, so we had that long. Yeah. And then I sat up there with Captain Wild Bill and shot the mess with him.
Wow. So we got Al on the line?
Yep.
All right. We'll go ahead and get to Al Pearce.
Mr. Al Pearce, how you doing?
Hey, Roger, how are you?
We're doing great. So did you have a busy day today?
Well, it wasn't that busy. We just sat down at 10 o'clock and left the Hall of Fame at 5. So, yeah, I guess we were pretty busy for hours.
Do they feed you? Because I know you like to eat.
Yeah, they had lunch. Yeah.
Was it any good?
It was all right. I would have picked, but that's not my job. So.
There you go.
So Al, when did you get into Charlotte? And I guess you're staying until Sunday or Monday morning and coming back home to Virginia?
Well, if I come back Sunday morning, I'll miss the race.
No, I said Monday morning. Didn't I say Sunday?
You said Sunday or Monday morning.
Okay. Yeah, so...
He's a NASCAR official. What do you expect?
We try to get out as soon as the race is over with. So, but, yeah, so what's your whole week consist of down there?
Well, you got on-track stuff all day tomorrow. I mean, you got cup practice and nationwide practice and all kinds of stuff tomorrow. Nothing on Friday. More stuff all day Saturday. Nationwide race Saturday afternoon, and then nothing on Sunday until 6:30 when the cup race starts. So,
Well, for a lot of people that have never been to Charlotte for the race, for the 600, as we know, it's the longest race of the year, most challenging, demanding. But man, they put on one heck of a show pre-race, don't they?
Well, they used to. They're not quite as exaggerated as they used to be. I don't think we really used to invade the country known to man, that he'd have mock battles, and he'd bring in the 82nd Airborne, and he'd bring in all kinds of helicopters and gunships. But they're a little bit more circumspect now. I think probably due to the time when the government was real happy to put on those big air shows for everybody to kind of, you know, impress people on how good they are. But we don't get all those shows like we used to. It's pretty much a country music singer or two, and you know, a couple of skydivers. That's gonna be about it, I think.
But don't they still honor our military with you know, them coming out there in some way?
Again, they used to. I don't know if they can do it tomorrow, this weekend or not. They generally will make the military either their honored free guest or let them come in at a big discount deal and sit all together. So, I mean, it'll be a military themed pre-race, but I'm not sure it'll be quite as extravagant as Humpy used to have.
I understand. Well, I guess you want to go ahead and let us know how everything went today. I mean, of course, they inducted the 2015 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there was, you know, we voted for 5.
Mm-hmm.
4 of the 5 I voted for made it. One of them was a complete, total, utter surprise to everybody. Excuse me.
So who was the surprise? Bill Elliott?
You what?
Who was the surprise?
I'm getting to it, Roger. Just be patient.
Okay.
Keep him straight.
It's like telling you the end of the story on the front page. You got to read a little bit.
Roger says he reads the back of the book, starts from the back and works his way forward. So
well, that explains a lot now.
But you'll get used to it.
Bill Elliott was no surprise whatsoever. He was named on virtually every ballot.
87% of the vote. Yep.
There are about 50 of us who voted, something like that, in the 50s. And I didn't vote for him. I did not think that a guy who raced as recently as last year, even though he's eligible for the Hall of Fame, I just thought maybe he should wait a year. I mean, we've had excuse me, I'm being interrupted here by people. I just thought he had to wait a while. I didn't vote for him.
Okay.
Everybody else apparently did, so Elliott went in in a landslide, basically. No surprise there.
Okay.
Wendell Scott went in pretty easily, not a huge surprise. I know that NASCAR corporately wanted him in.
Mm-hmm.
France spoke very eloquently about him. There were 2 or 3 or 4 other NASCAR people who talked at great length about him. So when his name was called second, nobody was too surprised about that. Nobody was too surprised when Joe Weatherly's name was called. Joe Weatherly was a 2-time champion from Norfolk. He died at Riverside in the year that he could have won 3 straight championships. He was leading in points the day he was killed. And it's possible you can assume that he might have won 3 championships. So Joe Weatherly, after a long delay in getting his name mentioned, Weatherly went in. Fred Lorenzen went in, a guy that a lot of old-time fans remember from back when he drove for Holman Moody. Didn't race for many years, or didn't race for long, but I mean, he did not have a long career. He had a pretty successful career with Holman Moody. He won Daytona and Charlotte and a bunch of other races. So that was no big surprise. But the big surprise, if you're ready for it now, Roger, was Rex White. Rex White was a 1960 champion. He was an owner of his own team, very much of a low-budget team, something like the Alan Kulwicki organization back a number of years ago. So Rex White from Atlanta was named, and that basically floored everybody. No, I don't think, when we had our lunch break, people began to talk about, well, who's in your top 5 and this and that. And so it was a big surprise when Rex White was mentioned, because at lunchtime, during the break, nobody ever mentioned his name. So anyway, we got Elliott, we got Scott, we got Weatherly, we got White, and we got Fred Lorenzen. A lot of people thought that Robert Yates would go in. A lot of people thought that Jerry Cook would go in. So Jerry was a
modified
vote getter a year ago. Rex White was not much of a vote getter the last couple of years, but he had enough today to win. So
yeah,
White in, and Lorenzen, Scott, Weatherly, and Bill Elliott.
Well, I was looking over some of the websites out and came across, it looked like NASCAR.com fan vote. It was sort of similar, but a little bit off. And of course, main vote getter was Bill Elliott, Wendell Scott, and then they had Rex White. And the other two was Benny Parsons and Terry Labonte. So that was really interesting to see that and see how, you know, y'all guys did the voting for 2015.
Benny had a lot of support at the meeting today, based not only on his on-track success, but his radio and TV work.
Right.
They consider that part of his Hall of Fame career, or part of his career. I think he was maybe 6th or 7th in the balloting, so he barely missed out. But generally speaking, drivers who were 6, 7, 8, something like that, after the previous ballot, they normally sort of get in the next year.
Right.
So it would not surprise me if Benny got in next year, if Robert Yates gets in next year, Jerry
Cook. Okay.
I think we'll probably get in next year, but you know, Terry Labonte raced as recently as a year ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really felt like it was time to put in a guy who's raced just a year ago.
Well, you had let us know that you didn't vote for Bill Elliott. Could you share who you voted for, or is that not something you want to discuss?
Yeah, I voted for Wendell Scott, Joe Weatherly. I'm sorry, I did vote for Bill. I'm sorry. I went back and changed my vote at the end. I did vote for Bill. I did not vote for Rex White. I think in his spot I had Richard Childress. And my thinking with Richard Childress is, Richard goes in my opinion, ahead of Rick Hendrick. For the very simple reason that when Richard Childress got started, he didn't have 1% of the resources that Rick Hendrick had when he started.
Right.
They started within about maybe 8 or 9 years of each other. They were all pretty close together. But when Childress started, he was a former driver, which makes me lean toward him a little bit more than Hendrick, although both will eventually make it.
Right.
So I think my vote would have went to Childress, thinking, A, he was a driver and toiled for years as a driver, and B, as an owner, he's created a pretty good dynasty or a pretty good program. He's won in all 3 series. Rick Hendrick has not. And even though Rick has more championships, I think Childress came farther with what he had than Rick had to.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree with
I
that.
can see both of them. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, compared to what Richard Childress began with, Rick Hendrick started with a basic pot of gold. If you compare what they started with,
Right.
I just thought that Richard Childress has had to come further and had to work harder and had more ups and downs and trials and tribulations than Rick Hendrick ever did. And you can talk about Hendrick's medical issues, you can talk about his felony conviction, you can talk about whatever you want, but I still think Richard Childress probably has had a harder road to get through than Rick Hendrick has. So that's why I voted for Childress.
You know, you've been around the sport a long time. Have you ever seen a big difference between the Richard Childress, the driver, and Richard Childress, the owner, over the years?
Well, you know, a lot of bad drivers become good owners, and sometimes it goes the other way. Richard Petty, obviously, was a great driver, has not been a particularly great owner. David Pearson, obviously a great driver, was not a particularly good owner. Rick Hendrick never drove. His background was business, and that business background, I think, held him in pretty good stead. Jack Roush was a mediocre sports car driver who turned into a pretty good owner. Joe Gibbs had absolutely no racing background whatsoever. He's a pretty good owner. So
yeah.
I don't think that one carries over to the other.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, I
Yeah.
never really thought about that, but you're right. Now, how does the voting start, Al? I mean, do you guys have a big list and y'all guys try to narrow it down, or everybody gets a couple of votes?
Yeah, when we sit down, well, actually a month ago we got a big booklet from NASCAR that listed the 20 nominees, their bios, what they've done, what they've accomplished.
Okay.
A great deal of information about them. Alphabetical order. There was no there doesn't appear to be any intent to sway the vote.
I got you.
And we sit down with that list and we basically say, okay, the floor is open for debate.
Right.
And at like 1 minute after 10, somebody said, well, you know, I think this is a year that we should consider Fred Lorenzen. And then Lorenzen might get discussed, or not. Or somebody says, like Brian France, it was clear to me, it's been clear to me for 2 years, that NASCAR corporately desperately wanted Wendell Scott. I think they're sort of tired of being looked at as a
redneck sport.
Redneck, maybe, yeah. Excuse me. I think they realize that they've got a huge fan base that they're not attracting because they don't have any African American drivers. I think that's why they want Bubba Wallace to do well. They want there's another black kid from Tennessee, Brian Gifford, him to do well. And Brian France basically said, we need Wendell in the Hall of Fame. We need that for our business. We need it for our industry. We need it for our image. And everybody affiliated with NASCAR. And the room was full of people who owe or begrudge, who owe or are beholden to NASCAR. They either work for NASCAR, or they work for a speedway that NASCAR runs, or they work for Motor Racing Network, or they work for a network that works with NASCAR. Anyway, there are enough people within the NASCAR family that if they voted together, which I'm sure they did, they could get almost anybody in. So I think the fact that Wendell got the second most number of votes of all the candidates indicates that they were behind him as a group. Maybe not formally, they might not have sat down last night and talked about it, but I think that when Brian France stood up and made an impassioned plea that we finally get Wendell in the Hall of Fame, I think everybody whose check comes from Daytona Beach thought, you know, might be a good idea to vote for Wendell. and I voted for him. And I'll tell you, and here's a statistic that will stun you people. If you're not sitting down, you should be. Wendell raced almost right at 500 races.
Wow.
Really? I would have never guessed that.
I didn't even realize that.
All right? Guess how many times he finished on the lead lap?
I'm imagining it's going to be pretty good, being you're bringing this
400
up.
and some.
I'm gonna go with 408.
How about one?
One.
The race that he
He
won
won.
in Jacksonville, Florida,
Okay.
in '63, was the only race he ever finished on the lead lap.
Really, I would have never guessed
I wouldn't
that.
guess that. I guess I gotta go get that NASCAR for Dummies book and read it.
You know, it's funny because somebody had mentioned on the radio earlier that they felt like Wendell didn't have the credentials to be in the Hall of Fame. And I can understand that to an extent, but I think he overcame a lot of diversity to deserve a spot.
Well, absolutely. And yeah, you take, I mean, if you took his numbers, you applied them to anybody else, they wouldn't even be on the ballot. I mean, they wouldn't have gotten nominated. They wouldn't be in the top 100.
Right. I mean, everybody that made a start in part could.
And one win, and one pole, and 500 starts, and one lead left finish doesn't get you anything.
Yeah, that is mind blowing. I mean, I really would have never thought that.
Danica Patrick's already beaten all those records just about. I mean, she's got a pole and not a win, but Lord have mercy, which is better than his. And God help me, I hope I don't live long enough for where I got to sit on a panel where her name comes up. Anyway.
So how long have you been doing the Hall of Fame stuff?
It's just my second year.
Okay.
They renew you, or they invite you back, I guess, on a yearly basis. And I guess I didn't screw up last year enough to get kicked off. So
you voted in the right realm.
I mean, we all know you've been in writing for NASCAR, writing about NASCAR for years. But how did you get picked to be on this board? I
have no idea.
Don't have the slightest idea. You just...
No, they came up to me, they approached me in Daytona Beach a year ago for it, and said, we would like you to be on, would you agree, or would you accept our invitation to be on the Hall of Fame voting panel? And I was tempted to say, what took you so damn long? I didn't. I just said, oh, I'd be honored.
Right. It's got to be a great honor to be able to do something like that. That is awesome.
Do you think possibly one of the flags was when you became the Hall of Famer here in Virginia?
No. I'm not sure if I heard the question, but the answer is probably no.
when you got inducted and nominated into the Hall of Fame, in the Sports Hall of Fame in Virginia here, I was thinking maybe that was something that shot up a flag to somebody and they decided to come to see you.
Yeah, they might have. They might have.
So much for the now.
I've been doing it 45 years. It's probably a better reason.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you've been around a long time, and I would respect your opinion.
Let me tell you, there are people on the panel that I don't think should be on the panel. For example, there are people on the panel who vote for their relatives. Brian France admitted today he was going to vote for his grandmother, Anne France. And she didn't make the Hall of Fame, but she won some other award that's pretty impressive, but still, I don't know that you should be allowed to vote.
For a family member?
I didn't think Ned Jarrett should be allowed to vote as long as Dale Jarrett was on the panel. I didn't think that Clay Campbell at Martinsville should be allowed to vote with his grandfather on the ballot. I don't know that anybody who works at NASCAR should be allowed to vote for anybody like with the last name of France. It just seemed like a conflict of interest to me, but...
Yeah, no, I could see the point. I mean, I'd imagine on any other... I mean, when you go into court, you can't have your...
You can't have your brother representing,
or the judge. Can't be, So, I mean, I could most definitely see that point, but I don't think it's going to change. But
but now the thing is, we got rid of all the Francis. Bill Sr., Bill Jr., and now Ann have all been elected to something, and I think it'll be a while before Brian's name comes up. So I think maybe in some areas or in some people's mind, Lorenzen might have been a sympathy vote because he is quite ill. He's got Alzheimer's. He's got dementia. He's not doing well. I don't know if he'll even be able to attend the induction ceremony in January. I don't know. But that was brought up prominently by a voter who said, we have waited too long and we have voted in people who we should have voted in a little bit before we did, because they died shortly thereafter or they died before we could get to them. And this person was very emotional about trying to get Lorenzen in, at least so he at least knows it. He's at least aware that he was elected today. Whether he can attend in January, I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but you never know.
Yeah.
So there's actually lobbying that goes on for why you should vote for this person or the other?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the deal. It's a room full of people, and they're allowed to basically say,
To sway a vote.
yeah. I remember last year, I went in there, and after there was some discussion about whether Bruton Smith should be in ahead of some other people, and I raised my hand and identified myself, and I said, I want to say one thing here. I said, before I left home this morning, and this is a year ago, I said, before I left home this morning, my wife reminded me that I am a first-time voter. And she reminded me, don't do anything so stupid, be a one-time voter. Don't make a fool of yourself. And I stood up last year and I said, to me, a man who wears a suit and tie and sits behind a desk comes in way behind men who get in those race cars and drive. I said, Joe Weatherly, because I lobbied hard for Weatherly a year ago. Joe Weatherly was a two-time series champion who was leading in points the year he was aiming to be a three-time champion, and he was killed in pursuit of that. And I said, I'm insulted that you people would think that a man who sits in an office with a coat and tie and signs checks and writes contracts should be ahead of a guy who died on the racetrack trying to defend the championship. And, you know, people, some liked it, some didn't. But my point was, to me, championship drivers or drivers of any level go in ahead of anybody else. Now, you knew that the first year it would be the two Frances, Bill Sr., Bill Jr. You knew Richard and Dale Earnhardt would go in. The fifth place was going to either be Junior Johnson or David Pearson. Turned out to be Junior. The first class, to me, that's okay.
Yeah.
And those people deserve it. After that, you got Bobby Allison, you got Lee Petty came in, Kale and Darrell came in, and drivers came in after that. Team owners, mechanics came in, and there were no more people who wore coats and ties and sit in offices. They were actually hands-on, on the racetrack, people who you know, make the sport what it is.
Right.
There you go.
Cool.
Well, it sounds like a lot of interesting things going on down there, and I mean, I think it's a great honor for you to be on there and be able to vote. We got 3 of your votes, but you never told us your last 2.
Oh, okay. I voted for Weatherly again.
Yeah.
Because I lobbied for him last year, and I went into the meeting thinking Lorenzen would really be good to get him in while he's alive. And the impassioned speech by the man that gave the speech convinced me Lorenzen should be in. Again, I voted for Childress, Rex White, and that's the only place where I was off. Because I had Elliott, and I had Scott, and I had Weatherly, and I had Lorenzen. I did not have Rex White.
I gotcha.
Again, but nobody did.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Somebody had to.
Well, one thing I know we definitely want to talk about, we want to talk to you last week about, is when we talked about this organization earlier tonight before you came on, and that's Victory Junction. And we want to definitely give you a little bit of time to tell us what you do with Victory Junction, your connection with them, and how I think you've been on every ride from coast to coast, and give us a little bit of insight about Victory Junction and everything it does.
Well, let me ask you this now. I'm in a restaurant right now. Just walked away from my table to call you guys. Can we do that next Wednesday night?
Let's do it next Wednesday then. Yeah. Go ahead, go back. I know how you like your food.
What are we eating?
We're in a seafood restaurant right near the Speedway.
Crab cakes.
All right, well, what we'll do is we'll put that on the agenda for next week and definitely do that.
And clam strips and crab cakes. So I need to get back to my table.
All right,
well, do that.
Next Wednesday night, I'll definitely come out, and next week we'll stop at 8 o'clock And Roger, you will buy me dinner again.
Hey, I'd make him get seafood after the last one.
We usually go out and do seafood at
Next week's a seafood
Ruby Tuesday.
week.
That's right.
All right.
We're
We look
definitely
forward to
eating tomorrow.
seeing you and hearing from you, Al, next week.
Okay.
Hey, thank you for calling in. Have a great week down there in Charlotte. And we'll see you next Wednesday night.
I didn't mean to talk this long, but you get me rolling, you get me.
Hey, we
Yeah, no,
understand.
it was good. No,
No, we
enjoyed it.
appreciate all the information. You have a great week down there. Thanks again.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Al's been around a long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Al did an interview with me last year, and we were talking about how many times he's been to Daytona. And how many miles he's probably logged down there and back. And
Yeah, because he won't fly.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
he'll fly, but he
It
he said it's cheaper to drive.
It was funny because we were talking about how people got into the sport and everything, and he said, and it was funny because he was like, well, you know, when they first put me into the automobile racing and everything, I didn't know nothing about it. I think he was used to football, baseball, and all that coming up through high school,
Wait,
college.
you told him that he knew everything there was to know about Nascar.
Isn't he the one, Roger, that said he asked somebody, "Where's the handles to get in the car?"
No, I'm not gonna say all
first,
that.
first one he went to is at Dover.
Okay.
What was it, 64
I was going to bring this up. I was going to bring this up, but I
It
didn't.
was the very first race at Dover.
No, it wasn't the very first race. It was
Was
the
it?
first race that Al went to do it
Okay.
when he got hired by the Daily Press. And what it was is when he decided to
great
raise his
story.
hand for a question, Richard Petty had won the race.
Okay.
And he asked Richard, he says, well, when the race was over, why didn't you just open up the door and get out of the car? and Al told me, he said, Richard turned around and said, you don't know much about racing, do you, boy?
And look where he's at, 45, 50 years
but,
later.
Yeah, but he said his response was, no, but I am trying to learn.
So,
I mean, that's, you can't make that up.
He's got a lot of interesting stories. I mean, he's been around the sport, I thought he said 45 years. I thought it was longer than that, but
I
45?
can't remember if he said his first race, or his first NASCAR race at Dover was 64 or 74. I can't remember. It was something along those lines.
I hate to think how long I've been around racing.
Well, 64, that put him at 49 years.
Minimum of 1963. Because that was the year my father used to race. And he used to race with Richard and Lee Petty. And I remember 63 because I was 8 years old, and that's when I met Richard for the first time. Because I used to thought my dad was BSing about how well he knew him and everything. And we came out and went over to visit with him, and they were hugging on each other like long lost brothers. And I just sort of at 8 years old going,
But you know, it's really weird. I grew up around Langley Speedway. My family had a wrecker out there with Union 76 and everything. And I always thought that these guys were the big dogs. Tommy Ellis, Butch Lindley, Sonny Hutchins, you name it. These guys were the. I mean, I knew we went to Richmond, and you know, I saw Petty and Pearson and all them. But Saturday night racing was it. Well, my uncle was on Junie Dunletty's pit crew, so Ricky Rudd was coming along. Lived over in Chesapeake. He was moving down to Carolina. He came to a race at Langley and sat up there with us. And I'll never forget, it was him, and I believe he had just got married to Linda, and he signs an autograph for me. To me, that was nothing. Tommy Ellis and Sonny Hutchins, those were the Bill Dennis, those were the big dogs. Then look what happened. Ricky Rudd goes off, wins many races in NASCAR, and has a great career and everything else. But it's funny because to me that wasn't the guys out on that track Saturday night were the big guys.
But I'll say the racing then.
It was
so better.
Oh
than it is
man,
today. Those guys, they raced.
Oh, well, they traveled. I mean, they raced somewhere Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday.
And there was always
that's how you could get all those races in.
I
there
mean,
was
Butch
a few-
Lindley.
But that's like sprint cars. They race so much now.
Yeah, but those guys, those guys raced you hard for second place or third place. Now those guys just kind of, if you're a little faster, they let you go. And I'm just as guilty in some of those cases.
Don't want to tear your stuff up. Because you know who's going to have to fix it if you tear it up.
Right. Back then, those guys didn't care.
Yeah.
All right, we got Ross Chastain on the line. How you doing tonight, Ross?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Good. Having a good old time. As always.
Yep.
We just finished talking with one of our friends down at the Charlotte Hall of Fame and going through all the picks and everything. What did you think about everybody that got voted in?
Well, I've actually we've been in tech at the track all day, so I haven't actually even seen who they know.
Well, there's some
Do you,
pretty
want us
good
to,
names.
do you want us to spoil your alert, or let you find out on your own?
Alright, go ahead and tell me. I bet I have an idea who two of them were, but I don't know the rest of them.
Well,
Give
let
us
you
your
go ahead.
guesses.
What's
Give
your
your guess.
two guesses?
Well, I think from who I saw, and I only glanced at a list they had of nominations, Bill Elliott's going to be on, and Wendell Scott has to be in there, so.
Those were the top two vote getters. And then the next one would have been Joe Weatherly, who's from Norfolk, Virginia, right close to here. And then Rex White was the fourth vote getter. And then Fred, is it Lorenzo? Is that how y'all say that?
Lorenzen.
Lorenzo.
Lorenzen.
Okay.
Right.
So that was the top five.
I'll murder a name.
Huh?
So I'll murder a name.
So that was really interesting. Now what we want to do is start talking a little bit about you and a little bit about your racing and how you got here, what you're doing nowadays, and what does the future hold for Ross?
Well, I got here because I didn't want to be on a watermelon farm anymore.
I understand that.
But anyway, no. Right now we're running this nationwide race this weekend with Beaver Motorsports, the 55 car. They gave me a good opportunity, and the whole team did to run their car. So, we're going to take it one practice at a time, one lap on the track at a time. This is my first time in a nationwide car, so I've got a lot to learn.
But you've got a lot of experience within the Camping World Truck Series.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I ran 14 races last year, practice out racing, ran some other races the 2 years before that. So with some other teams, and to get my feet wet, and then went after it last year with the chance I had with Brad and his whole team. So we showed some speed, but at the end of the day, as everybody knows, we didn't get a victory. So it definitely has hurt me, as far as my career, but we can't do anything. We keep trying. I know I can win. I just got to put myself in the right situation to make it all happen.
I understand that. Well, you've put together a deal for this weekend's nationwide race out at Charlotte. I guess Charlotte's home for you, isn't it?
In a sense, it's where I'm living now. I moved up here in 2012 when I signed with SS Greenlight and Bobby Doddard. I moved into their race shop upstairs there for that entire year, and then last year when I signed with Brad, I was able to move to a townhome on 30 mo acres. So I'm here now, and I actually I'm still living here, so they're real good to me here, and really, yeah, a home in that sense. But I'm from South Florida, so my mom's coming up. She's actually driving up here right now, and but anyway, the rest of my family couldn't come. This is actually the busiest time of year for our farm. We have we grow watermelons in South Florida, and from Memorial Day is our busiest week right now. So they're shipping as many out as they can, working as long as they can. So the rest of the family couldn't come, but I understand that comes first. So the farm definitely comes first, and what I'm doing up here, everybody likes it, and everybody enjoys it, but got to go to work first. So
I understand that. That's what pays the bills. A lot of people probably don't know what Dirty Mo Acres is. We do, since we're in racing. I mean, it's a land of
Land of opportunity.
Yeah,
we're in.
big opportunity. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Up there in Mooresville. But how you put together this deal? What does the rest of 2014 hold for you, and what are you looking at trying to do throughout the rest of the season?
Well, I've got a unique opportunity this year, working with the National Watermelon Association and each state association. Obviously, growing watermelons has introduced me to a lot of people
Right.
in the agriculture industry. So, I got to meet these people as I was growing up, and the people that are heads of these boards and presidents and stuff of these associations. And I've known them for a long time, and they know me they know me better than I know them, because they know me since before I could walk. So I built a bunch of good relationships, I feel like, with a bunch of good people and people that are my friends and truly, are more of a family to me than anything. They're more than friends, they're family. So, been working with the National Watermelon Association and all the folks over there for the past several years, since I was racing late models, trying to build this program of an all ag-based car, an all agriculture-based race car. So it started out small, started out with a couple $100 to go buy some tires for a late model race, and has grown into a full-blown nationwide ride for this weekend. So it's really cool, for me, since working on this since about 2007, I'd say, when I started racing in 2006, and we realized very quickly that that my family could not support me to where I wanted to go. We could still run fast trucks down in Florida, we could still run late models, but to take that next step was going to take some help and take, connection. So we started working on it then. So we've came a long way in our relationship with the National Watermelon Association. It's grown tremendously and far beyond what I ever thought. As a 15-year-old kid racing, down in Florida, I never thought I'd get the chance to race in NASCAR. So, we've grown that relationship with the National Watermelon Association and watermelon.org, and now the dominoes are starting to fall. Now we've got Helena Chemical to come on board, and they're great friends of mine too, that I've known for a long time, and I've shown them now the benefits of being in NASCAR with me, and building my brand as the watermelon kid, but also the agriculture kid. There's some cars out there that have ag stuff on them, but not every weekend, and that's my goal, is to have an all ag-based race car. So, it's still a long ways away, in one sense, but in another sense, it's right around the corner for me. So, I'm really excited about that. But as far as the rest of the year, this year, this is all we got. We got one race with Viva Motorsports. Working on some things just like everybody else is in this town, especially in Mooresville. I'm a dime a dozen as far as race car drivers without a full-time ride.
Right.
But I feel like I can bring a little extra, a little something more than just, hey, let me drive your race car. I have relationships, and I have, friendships more than a relationship. I have friendships with people that I can, bring to the table. So, that's just as important as being a good race car driver these days.
I think a lot of people out there don't realize how much the sponsorship dollar is such a major part of this sport. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, as we see with many guys, but, not having that money there can, really hold you back. Now, if this is a one-race deal for you, I mean, you're going to do anything down in Florida, back home, with the late models and, play around down there a little bit?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. I can't afford to. That's what it comes down to. I decided in 2011 I ran 5 races to get my licensing and had a 5-race deal to run with Turn 1 Racing with Stacy Thompson, and I was just starting college. I just graduated high school and did a semester of college back home at Florida Gulf Coast University, which nobody knew at the time, but now they just remember they were Dunk City. They made it pretty far with their basketball team.
Right.
So I did a semester there, and I'd actually enrolled back for the next semester, and had actually went 2 weeks to class whenever we were able to. Tommy Honor called and said his stuff was open, and we could come go racing. He wanted to go racing, and he wanted to do it with me. So, we did that, and at that time, the best decision for me was to move up here. So 2 weeks into my second semester of college, I had to stop. I had all my schooling, all my college I had to pay for with scholarships from high school, but they were all Florida-based scholarships. So I couldn't finish from up here.
Right.
I looked at the online stuff, and I didn't feel like it was really going to benefit me any. Because I did one online class my first semester, I didn't learn much.
I tell you what, people don't realize how disciplined you need to be to do online courses. I've done them when I was going through and getting my degree. You've got to be really disciplined and sit down and really take it serious.
Right, and if I'm going to college, I'm not going to party. I'm going to learn. I'm going for a degree in agriculture and agribusiness. So because one day I will be back farming something, most likely, we'll see what that is at the time, what's booming at the time, and what makes sense.
Right.
I think. So that's but I hope that's a long ways away. I hope I'm up here in Morganville for quite a while. Or when you make it, I guess you get moved to Huntersville or somewhere on the lake. So,
High rent district. Well, what we definitely want to do is we want to go ahead and let you go ahead and give your sponsors, a shout out and the appreciation and everything. And we definitely want to be able to talk to you more in the future.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wouldn't be here without the National Watermelon Association, for sure. It's more than just a sponsorship. It's a true friendship and a family to me. So we've got a couple of them coming up to this race. This is a big step forward for us. Running in the nationwide series with an all watermelon-based race car. And I want to be clear that, yes, my family grows watermelons, but we don't grow nearly enough watermelons to pay racing in NASCAR. So a lot of people, that don't really understand the whole situation will make assumptions because there are other situations, in this sport where our family is fortunate enough to fund the driver, whoever it is, whether it's son or whoever, race. And I wish that was the situation. I wish we grew enough watermelons and made enough money to be able to fund me to just race whatever I wanted to, but that's not the case. So,
yeah.
But we work hard and we put together as many deals as we can, and we're trying to promote watermelons. It's what we know, what we love as a family. My real family, as far as my mom and my dad, and then my watermelon family too. We're all in it. It's what we love to do. So we'll keep plugging along, and can't thank Helen the Chemical enough for coming on board this year. And if we can't grow that relationship like we have the rest of them, we've got a good start over the past couple of years, and I'm not looking forward. I'm not thinking it's going to be stopping anytime soon. So we'll keep plugging along at it.
Well, that's what you got to do, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you calling in. We want to wish you good luck this weekend down there in the nationwide race down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I tell you what, we hope we get to talk to you some more in the future, and good luck to you.
And check out watermelon.org, and the best thing you can do to keep me racing is go buy a watermelon. That's all it'll take.
I bought my watermelon yesterday.
There's one sitting on the counter in my house now.
It don't matter what kind, it don't matter where you buy it, it don't matter what you do with it, just go buy them. And it's summertime, it's watermelon time. So.
Yeah, I know. I see this picture on your Facebook. I sent you a request, so I expect you to accept me now. There's a watermelon that got a whole bunch of liquor pouring in it.
Where do you buy that one at?
That vodka.
Can you get them or?
Oh, I don't care what you do with watermelons. You just
Oh, man, we want to wish you the best, man. We hope to see you, and you take care.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks for calling in.
Talk to you next time, Ross.
All right, thanks.
The one thing that most of the drivers that we talked to tonight has said that they, and you don't hear this a whole lot, they know that racing career is not going to be there for so long.
Yeah.
And they're doing other things to be able to fall back on. And that's really good because, we see so many young drivers coming in and they devote so much time, effort, and everything to racing. And you don't know what to fall back on. And that's really interesting. We've talked to two drivers with two of the similar situations, going for something and being able to fall back. He's like he said, he knows he'll probably be running that farm someday. And, Patrick, maybe a doctor, maybe doing our heart surgery, because we are going to go out and probably get fried food tonight. So I know I'm going to need a stent before I'm probably 55. So
Hold on, I'm already past that point. So.
But you told us how old you were. You said 1963. You were 8 years old.
Yep.
So I caught hold of that and I wrote it down. I did that. But nah.
Well, this year I'll be 58. So
there you
make it
go.
easy for you.
There you go. But it was a good show.
My dad.
Oh God. Who knows? Maybe you're one of my kids.
Nah. My dad's only this tall, so
Well,
I've always said it was a milkman. So.
How old is Jack?
Jack might be my dad.
Oh!
Maybe that's the reason y'all two argue so much.
I don't know how old Jack is. How old is Jack?
He's about
I don't think he's
two
quite-
2 or 3 years younger than I
Yeah,
am.
he's close. It's funny because my parents were real young when I was born. They were like 15 and 16. So like when I first started working for people, when I worked for Barry said one day, he's like, well, you know, I'm probably not old enough to be your dad, but I'm probably fairly close. I said, well, how old are you? He was born in 53. I don't know how old he is now. And he told me, I was like, oh, you're old enough. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're about 3 years older than my dad. And he's like, what?
Yeah, he's 61 now.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad's 58. My mom's 57.
But yeah,
Or 58 and 59, I can't remember. No,
who knows what I have left around in my younger days.
Well, I tell you what, so next week we definitely know that we're going to have Al Pearce back.
Yep.
And Al's going to want seafood. So we know we don't eat lunch next Wednesday.
Eat light next week.
Very light. So Al Pearce will have a lot of great things to say about Victory Junction, which we started talking a little bit about tonight. So look forward to hearing that. Of course, I know Roger will line up some other great guests for us.
But don't feel afraid. You can call and talk to people too.
Okay. Well, we
I already
can do
got
that.
2 lined up. I've got Dylan Smith and who else have I got lined up? Tab Boyd.
Okay, Spotter.
Spotter.
Yeah.
And one other person.
Well, you know, next weekend we'll not this coming weekend since it's Memorial Day, but next weekend the K&N East will be out at Bowman Gray, and we'll
not
see
this weekend, next weekend.
Right, the weekend of the 31st. Yeah, they'll pack the house. Well, they pack the house on a normal night anyway, but it's very interesting.
Are you
with
going?
Mm-hmm. I'll be heading down. Yeah. I'll be heading down Friday and coming back maybe Sunday, or going to the house in Charlotte for a couple of days. But me and Roger got a program to put on middle of that week now, right? That'll be June. I think I got to be back
4th,
by Wednesday.
I think it was, June 4th.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll be a good race. We'll see what we can do about lining up some K&N drivers and being able to talk to them.
Well, now when the K&N race comes up to Langley,
We definitely want
we might have Greg Galding and Brendan Newberry coming in here.
Oh, okay, great.
I want to talk
Two good drivers, 2 young drivers.
And Sergio had also talked about possibly coming in also.
We're going to be crowded.
We may be having a rotating thing over here.
Where are we going to sit Jack at?
In his lab.
No, I said his lab. He's too big.
Okay.
He's too fat.
Aren't you a strong, scrappy boy?
They've been texting
Have you
each
seen
other.
how big?
They're pretty tight. I'm serious. I think they like each other, but that.
Yeah, you know, really. Yeah, we love to give each other a hard time.
I mean, they were texting back and forth. So.
He texted me and he said, "Oh, this is." He said, "So how'd it go?" I said, "It's still on. Good that you're not here."
It's good to work with people like that, but yeah.
So we're going to be at the Strawberry Festival this weekend. Miles of Seamless Discovery will be out there, so come out there and say hi. I'll be out there Saturday and
Which
Sunday.
Strawberry Festival? Is that out like in Chastain?
Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach.
Yeah, we're out in almost Pongo, so it's pretty nice. It's big.
Didn't it used to be the Pungo Strawberry Festival?
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
All he knows is he's got
I
his
just
car
know I'll
out
be
there.
there at the I'll have the car. They'll bring the car. They would.
Which car? Are you talking about arena racing? Or?
Yeah, the arena car.
Are you going to be the only arena driver out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
I don't
gonna
have
be.
to worry about getting in a fight or anything. Somebody might show up. You never know.
We'll invite your buddies out there, all your favorites.
Well, we'll definitely have to if we get down that way. Jimmy Buffett's in town this weekend.
Is it this weekend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's always a good time. You know,
Yeah.
wild people come out for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty bad when you go to the concert. You see your doctor there, and he's in a Hawaiian shirt. You're like,
he's had a few too.
Yeah. Hope I don't fall out tonight. So, but yeah.
At least you know there's a doctor close by.
Exactly, doctor in the house.
Yeah.
But
now the other thing that scares me after I threw that out to Patrick, if he comes up here and somebody else has already asked me to spot for them.
Well, but you already put
There's
it
a
out
lot of
there.
people here.
Well, I did. I've already put it to a couple.
You've already
people.
given him the first choice. So.
No, I've actually talked to a couple other. But I mean, these are people that normally have spotters, but sometimes they may need help. So
it ain't hard to find a spotter.
Yeah, I know that.
But you know, and thing is, a lot of people, one show I hope we can do, a lot of people from this area are doing a lot of stuff in NASCAR nowadays.
Yeah.
It's really weird when you go, you fly out to Ohio, next thing you know, I see Anthony Warren there. And I'm like, I remember him when he was like this and had races on, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, Travis Miller's dad, who's with Precon Construction on the Marine, on the 33 car, 33 car,
him and
Falk.
Yeah.
Yep.
You see so many different people, and you're just like, wow, you know. So,
but not just in racing, and about any sport, we're very lucky to have a lot of people that come from.
We've had a lot of good talent come out of this area, between football, basketball, and baseball, and everything else.
That's like me and Brian. He and I really didn't get to know each other till, I don't know, till a few years ago at Langley, and came out and visited us over in turn 3 and 4 and talked with me and Faith, and then from then on it's been a nice uphill.
And that was right after I just got done with NASCAR, somewhere around 2008, somewhere like that, and we just started talking through Facebook.
Yeah.
Man, Facebook does done wonders.
Look, this is funny. Like the other day, Bubba Wallace's grandmother, I guess you know
Jackie Wallace.
Yeah.
I was just talking to her.
She messaged me, right?
Uh-huh.
She says, I seen you were Brian Sperrin and you had a race suit on, so we must be friends. So then she starts messaging me. We had this long conversation. It's so funny, you know.
She's a nice woman, and we started talking because Bubba Wallace's whole family, his dad, mom, it's really weird. When I first moved to Concord, we went to Concord Speedway, and they had the I don't want to call it the Pass Series. I'm trying to think of what the series was, but
UARA.
UARA. And he had the number 76, and that was always the car my uncle sponsored out at Langley because he owned Union 76 there on Jefferson. And I was like, I heard somebody say something about how good this kid was. And I was like, well, I'm glad to see he's got a good number, you know. And I started watching him while I went to another race, and I watched him again, and I was like, this kid's got a lot of talent. Then once I got on with NASCAR, he started coming into the K&N series with the Rev Race and Drive for Diversity and everything else. I got to know his family really good. And just wonderful people. That whole family, they will, if you get them away from the track and get to talking, you will laugh till the end of the night.
Is that right?
Oh my goodness. I mean, his dad is a trip, his mom, his sisters. Bubba Wallace is just a great guy. I was really glad to be able to be there last year when he won Martinsville.
Yeah.
And now his spotter, Freddie Kraft, I know him real well. It's just so funny because I got to know Freddie through the modifieds. He did spotting for George Broenhosel. And then, of course, his girlfriend was working at my bank. So every time I went into the bank, we always talked racing. So in North Carolina, it's just a big circle of just who knows who, you know, and it's really cool. It was just like Ross said, you know, look where he lives, look who he networks with. That's what you got to be if you're going to stay in racing. So it's so important. That's the reason I guess everybody moves down to North Carolina. Yeah. But Jackie, Mrs. Wallace is a great woman.
It was just so funny. She was like, yeah, well, Scott, I see you're friends with Brian. And, like, I accepted her, and after I accepted her, she said, yes, I am. Bubba Wallace is my grandson. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
That's such a trip. But alrighty, guys,
Ready to wind down?
We'll wrap this up.
Let me roll out the bean footage. Oh, that's something else.
The bean footage.
Haven't you ever watched the bush baked beans, the commercial they have? Good God.
I thought you were going to talk about an old commercial and say, Brian's not that old.
You are
he did give us his age of that.
Anyway, everybody, we had a good night, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Take care. See you next week.
In order to get senior citizen discount.
Hey guys, I'm Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bain, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Racing.
Hi, I'm Robert Richardson Jr., driver of the number 23 Dodge Challenger for R3 Motorsports in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, and you're watching Let's Talk Racing.
I'm Tony Peter, driver of the number 17 Toyota in the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series, and you're listening to Let's Talk Racing.
Here's your 2011 champion, David Brehm.
Hi, this is David Polenz, driver of the 33 NASCAR Late Model, 2011 Old Dominion Speedway Track Champion. Thank you for watching Let's Talk Racing TV.
I'm Sam Hunt, drive the 42 car on the thing Let's Talk Racing.
Hi, my name is Natalie Sather. I drive the 94